Hello my dear students, welcome back to the class. So in the previous class we discussed on the revolt of 1857 and various causes which led to the revolt. Then we discussed about the events. Then we discussed about the causes of the failure of the revolt of 1857. Then finally we discussed about the consequences of the revolt of 1857. So today I am going to teach you chapter number 2 from history. Okay, so before I start, let me remind you once again, those who have not watched the previous chapters with tutorial, the link to the tutorial is given in the description box. Please check it and watch it so that it will be in a chronological order to understand the history of modern India, that is of class 10. Okay, so today we are going to discuss chapter number 2, that is the growth of nationalism, okay, and the factors promoting nationalism. Factors promoting nationalism. So before we start the important factors, we need to understand what is meant by nationalism. So normally, whenever you are asked about nation or nationalism or nationalistic or the nationality, you people feel that I am an Indian or we belong to this country, that is why we are called the nationals of this country. Okay, but what is the important meaning or the true meaning of nationalism? That is also very important to understand. Like if you are to give the real meaning or the literary meaning of nationalism, you will come to know that it's a patriotic feeling. Okay, it's a patriotic feeling towards one's country. One's country, patriotic feeling towards one's own country. That means love for your country. That means you are ready to do anything for your country. You are ready to sacrifice for your country, right? Like many of our ancestors, they gave their life to free our country. So they had the love for their country, and they wanted to provide a free country for the coming generation. That is why they decided to sacrifice their life for the country, to free the country. That was a love they had towards their country. So nationalism, if you try to elaborate in a proper way to understand more precisely, then we can know that nationalism has the three important constituents. Number 1 is patriotism, number 2 is independence, and number 3 is unity. Okay, that is patriotism, independence, and unity. Okay, so what does patriotism means? You all know it, but still, patriotism means love for one's own country. Okay, love for his or our country. I love my country. Alright, you love your country. Being an Indian, being a citizen of any countries of the world, you love your countries. Right, so patriotism means love for his or our own country. Now, what is the meaning of independence? Independence means freedom from outside control. No country wants to be ruled by foreign power. So, freedom from the control of outside power. So, during that time, when after the revolt of 1857, when there was a rise of nationalism, India was under the control of British rule. So, they wanted to free themselves from the British rule. They wanted to attain independence from the foreign rule. And third one is unity. That is very, very important. As a citizen of the country, as a nationals of the country, okay, it is the duty of every human being or every individuals living in the country to be united. So the unity should not be decided on the basis of caste or creed. So unity denotes feeling of oneness. We all are one. Though we live in different parts of the country, there should be a feeling that we belong to this country and we all are one. Okay, togetherness, common consciousness. Okay, and all these things should be irrespective of class, caste, creed, and culture. Class, caste, creed, and culture. So there should not be any discrimination. There should not be any differences based on caste, creed, or culture to distinguish our identity. We all are one. Though we live in different parts of the country, I live in West Bengal, you live in Maharashtra, others live in any of the states of India, we finally are the citizen of this country. We belong to India. Okay, we are identified as Indians. We are not identified by our state. We are identified by our country. So we have one single citizenship. That is, we are Indians. Okay, so there should be a feeling of nationalism in each and every individuals. We should be ready to fight for our country. We should be ready to sacrifice our country for our motherland. Okay, we should be ready to protect our country from the foreign aggression. So that is what we call patriotism. Okay, but during those time when British rule was there in our country, there was no such feeling of nationalism. Unity was not there. So we saw in the revolt of 1857, it was a scattered revolt. Everywhere in different places revolt took place, but finally it came to an end because it was not a centralized movement. It was not a movement of the entire country. Many of the peoples, they supported the British government, but those who were frustrated, those who felt that we need to free our country from the British rule, they came out of their houses and they went out to revolt against the British rule in the year 1857. Right now, after the end of the revolt of 1857, there was a gradual rise in the nationalistic feeling among the people. So, which are the factors which promoted the growth of nationalism? So, I have written it over here: economic exploitation. The next one is repressive colonial policy. This we'll discuss after this. So, economic exploitation. So, in the last chapter, there also we discuss about economic exploitation. The same thing again over here also we are going to discuss. So economically, India was converted into a agricultural colony. So during those time, you know that agriculture suffered. Peasants suffered, the farmers they suffered. With the coming of Britishers in our country, my dear, the economy of our country started to decline. A number of reasons were there which was responsible for the decline of Indian industries. Okay, now let me tell you about land revenue. Land revenue was the most important source of income of the British government. Okay, so they introduced zamindari system and right-to-way system. Okay, zamindari system is a system in which zamindar is the link between the peasant and the government. Zamindar will collect revenues from the peasants and will submit to the government. So zamindars, they started taking extra money from the peasants. They started harassing the peasants. Okay. Then the second system they introduced was a right-to-way system. That was a system where the peasant will have, a government will have direct connection, direct contact with the peasant, and government will collect the revenue from the peasants. Okay, so when the peasants could not pay the revenues on time, zamindars forcefully evicted the peasants from their land. Okay, and in such condition, what we saw, the peasants they were forced to go to the money lenders to borrow money, and in turn they had to mortgage their land. And when they did not pay the money to the money lender back on time, their lands were confiscated. So ultimately, who was the sufferer? The peasants had to suffer. Okay, so zamindari system, right-to-way system brought a lot of harassment to the peasants. Okay, so next one is famines. So in the 19th century, in the previous class also we discussed famines broke out, and during the famine, the government did not come forward with any relief measures. Mostly the major famine areas in India at that time was in Odisha, Bengal, Bombay, Madras, northwest frontier provinces, okay, and central provinces. And what was the main cause of the famine? What was the main cause of the famine? So the main cause of famine was non-availability of food to the poor classes. Why there was food was not available? Due to rise of price. So definitely when the prices go high, the poor people, they cannot afford to buy the food crops. So when they can't, so they will die of starvation. So they will suffer. And during this period, my dear, the government did not take proper measures. They did not take proper measures to give relief to the people, to prevent death due to starvation. So if you go without food for many days, when you starve without food for many days, my dear, what will happen? You will definitely die. Okay, that is why now they were left with no option. So revolts broke out in Bengal, Pune, Ahmedabad. Okay, why? Because they could not longer endure hunger and oppression. They could not bear the hunger and oppression, so they broke out in revolts. Okay. Then the other thing, the same topic we are discussing, economic exploitation. Another thing we can understand in a different way, like Indian industries which are famous in the world, my dear, textile industries like silk industry, mostly in Murshidabad, Dhaka. They were famous for cotton textile and silk. All were wasted, my dear. How it happened, my dear? Like old industries had during those time had been giving a lot of employment to the people. People got a considerable employment to the Indian population, but slowly with the coming of Britishers in our country, they brought British English made goods, finished goods from England and sold it in the Indian market, and gradually the Indian industries lost its ground. Okay, but in 1858, when Queen came up with the Queen Proclamation, there she promised that Indian industries will be protected, but it was not at all seen. Okay, the government neglected the Indian handicraft and small scale industries. Okay, Indian indigenous industries started to decline slowly and gradually. Why? How it happened? Did they force them to close their industries? No, my dear. It happened due to they could not compete. They could not compete with the machine-made goods in England. Machine-made goods were supplied in India, and the goods made in our country were handmade, so it could not face the tough competition. That was one of the reasons. Next one was heavy import duties. Heavy import duties means taxes on the import of goods. Okay, when the goods entered into England or any of the European market, okay, it was imposed with heavy duty. So automatically when the duties are imposed heavily, that means heavy taxes are imposed on the entry of Indian goods in Europe or England market, then definitely the prices of those goods will definitely go high. Did you understand? So that was the reason due to which the Indian industries and handicrafts started to decline. Okay, many of the with the introduction of railways, let me tell you, my dear, with the introduction of railways, it became very easier for the English the Britishers to enter into the interior part of the country and collect raw materials at a very cheap price and send it to England. The same raw materials were supplied to England and which was converted into finished goods and was once again brought back and flooded in the Indian market. Okay. So cotton, woolen and silk industries, jute, paper, glass were all hit worstly. These industries were completely hit very tough. It was hit in a difficult way. Foreign markets for the Indian goods were closed. Definitely why it was closed? Because import duties were heavy. Indian handicrafts were completely ruined because they lost their market. Okay. So once the important cities of textile and silk like Murshidabad, okay, Dhaka now it is in Bangladesh, okay, Surat, so all these were famous for cotton textiles. So what happened? India now became a colony supplying raw materials to the British, raw materials to the Britain. Before we were a supplier of finished goods, but now we became a supplier of raw materials. So they collected raw materials from India, took it back to England, finished goods were made, and finally the same goods were brought back to the Indian market. That means India now served two purposes for the Britishers. Number one, India became the source of raw material and the market for the finished goods. So who suffered? Finally, the Indians suffered. So this brought frustration among the Indians who lost their job, who became completely unemployed. Okay. Now, on the other hand, expenditure and taxation. Heavy taxation, that was already there. high expenditure, military expenditure, civil administration, salaries of the European officers, all were paid from the revenues generated from India. Okay, they did not utilize the revenues collected from India for the development of the country. So it was drained towards England. So that is why Dadabhai Naoroji, who is also known as the Grand Old Man of India, he has written a book on the actual condition of India, like poverty and un-British rule in India, in which he highlighted the economic exploitation of India and how the wealth was drained towards England. So wealth was drained towards England in the form of salaries, okay, pension, home charges, okay, military expenditures, and everything was the burden of running the administration was on the head of the Indians. So revenue completely turned towards England, drained of wealth. Okay, so we can say that poverty was brought in our country due to the drain of wealth towards England. So economically India was exploited in a very, very different way. Okay, so economically India was a worst sufferer, economic exploitation. So India was exploited. There was no benefit. Whatever they were doing, it had a negative impact on the Indian economy. Number one, Indian industries, they were shut down. Due to that, unemployment problem started to rise up. Okay, handicraft industries, small scale industries. Okay, and those who were employed in all this industries, they all now became jobless. So definitely frustration will be there. Okay, so there were a lot of grievances. So that they were waiting for an opportunity, and slowly and gradually they started talking among themselves, and there was a rise of nationalism. We need to do. I am suffering, you are suffering, so we need to unitedly do something to save our country from this type of exploitation. Okay, so this is all about economic exploitation. Now number 2. These are the topics which is mostly to be discussed because it is mentioned in our syllabus. A number of factors are there, but some of the important which is required in our syllabus, which is given in our syllabus, we'll discuss first, and the remaining we'll discuss at the last. Okay, economic exploitation. Now next one is repressive colonial policy. Repressive colonial policy. So what is mean by repressive colonial policy? So we need to discuss about it. It's very, very easy. You can remember now only when I teach it. Okay. Now, at the time of Lord Lytton, when Lord Lytton became the viceroy of our country, because after 1857, the Governor General post was given a name of a viceroy, and the first viceroy of our country was Lord Canning. After that, the one by one viceroys came on changing. Okay, so Lord Lytton became the viceroy from 1876 to 80. For 4 years he was the viceroy of our country. Okay, and during his tenure, my dear, he came up with very, we can say that he came up with a repressive policy which made the Indians very much to go against the British. The repressive policy, the policy which they introduced, created hatred among the people, which ultimately became the factor for the rise of nationalism among the people. So number one, when the whole country, listen to me, when the whole country was in the grip of famine, number one, that is in the year 1877 onward, my dear, that time British government, they should have shown their concern for the Indian sufferers, but they did not do so. In spite of showing concern, my dear, they were busy in Delhi. That is, Delhi Darbar was held, my dear, in which Queen Victoria, my dear, was to be given the title of the Empress of India. They were busy hosting the program over there in Delhi. Delhi Darbar was held. Delhi, that means Darbar. Darbar means a grand festival. Okay, was held at Delhi in the year 1877. Okay, and in which Queen was given the title of Empress of India. She was given that imperial title, like Empress of India. Okay, number one. Number two, my dear, after the revolt 1857, Queen Victoria and the government of Britain, they decided that educated Indians will not be ignored. They will also be allowed to write the exam, and after passing the exam they can be given the government jobs. So for that they need to pass the ICSE examination, Indian Civil Service Examination, which was held at London. Okay, and the age limit of ICSE examination was 21 years. So now Lord Lytton, what did he do was that he reduced the age limit from 21 to 19. Okay, so you may be thinking, what is the harm in reducing the age limit? So simple, my dear. If a class 5 student is asked to write the board exam, can he do so? Not at all. So classes increases, classes goes on building up according to the maturity of the child. So a 19 years old boy, I don't think he or she can write the ICSE examination and pass the examination. Okay, so what was the maximum age limit? Maximum age limit, that means if you are 19 you are allowed to write the ICSE examination, but if you become 20 you are not allowed to write the ICSE examination. So at the age of 19 nobody is going to pass the ICSE examination. Okay, so maximum age limit to write the ICSE examination, Indian Civil Service Examination, was reduced from 21 to 19. Was reduced from 21 to 19. So obviously, my dear, a 19 years old cannot write or pass. If he or she writes also, definitely the mind is not matured enough to write the civil service examination, right? So definitely they will fail and they won't get the job. Okay, so main motive was that they let them fail. We have already promised them that we'll be allowing them to write the ICSE examination, but ultimately the motive was not to allow them to pass. Okay, so by reducing the age limit from 21 to 19, it became difficult for the Indians to compete. Okay, for it. It became very difficult to compete this examination. Okay, children. So this is number two. Number one. During the time of famine, the whole India was suffering. At that time, government was busy. At Delhi, Delhi Darbar was held, in which Queen Victoria was given the title of Empress of India. Okay, that was important for them. The people suffering and dying was not important for them. No relief was given to them. And number two, the age was reduced. For writing the examination, okay, the ICS examination, the age was reduced from 21 to 19. Okay, 21 to 19. And that made the Indians very difficult to complete the exam. Okay, number three, Vernacular Press Act was passed. In the year 1878, Vernacular Press Act was passed. In 1878, Vernacular Press Act was passed. Okay, so what was Vernacular Press Act? Vernacular means the language of the people. Okay, if I ask you what is your vernacular language, you will say my vernacular language is Hindi. Or if you are asked, you may say Bengali. That is mother tongue, because that is the tongue which we learned in the beginning. Okay, so it can be Nepali, it can be Hindi, it can be Bengali, it can be Odia, it can be Marathi, anything. Okay, so these are the vernacular languages. So during those time, lot of papers were also printed in the vernacular languages of the people. Like today we see Bangla paper, newspaper is there, Bangla newspaper is there, Odia newspaper is there, Marathi newspaper is there, okay, Nepali newspaper is there. So all these are the language of the people. News is same. If I read Bangla, definitely I cannot understand what is written over there. But if I read in Hindi, definitely I'll understand it. So that is the language I understand. That is my language which I speak at home. Okay, so vernacular papers were there during those times. But now, according to this act, which was passed in 1878, okay, Lord Lytton passed an act, okay, restricting the vernacular papers to write anything against the government. If they write anything against the government, their machineries will be confiscated and their papers will be banned. That means freedom of press was curtailed. Freedom of press was completely curtailed. Okay, so Vernacular Press Act, my dear, that means curtail the civil liberties of the press. Press means it should be free. There should not be any bondage upon the press. Okay, so if they publish anything against the government, then they are publishing materials. Okay, so definitely that means whatever machineries and all will be confiscated. Okay, or it will be taken as a criticism of the government or a seditious statement. It will be taken as seditious statement. So if they write anything against the government may think that this is written to instigate the people to go against the government. It will be taken as seditious. Okay, seditious statement. And if they are found, their paper will be banned. That is there. All the machineries will also be confiscated. That was Vernacular Press Act. Okay, but one thing you must understand: this act was not applicable for the English newspaper. This act was not applicable for the English newspapers, only for the vernacular papers. I think you understood vernacular papers, language of the people, which they understand. Bangla newspaper, Odia newspaper, Marathi newspaper, Nepali newspaper, okay, Marathi newspaper, all these are vernacular papers. Marathi newspaper, Marathi people will read it. Bangla newspaper, Bengali people will read it. Okay, Odia newspaper, people of Odisha, definitely they know it, they will read it. So these are the languages of the people. So that time also it was there. Okay, so Vernacular Press Act curtailed the freedom of vernacular papers. They were not allowed to write anything against the government. Number 3, I told you. Now number 4, Arms Act. Number 4 is the Indian Arms Act. So the same, in the year 1878, Arms Act also was passed. Okay, to keep any sort of arms like guns. I want to keep a gun for my safety. Okay, but in this, what was the act like? Indians were not allowed to keep arms without a license. Okay, Indians were not allowed to keep arms without a license, whereas Europeans can keep. So there is an inequality in the law. Law was not applicable for everyone. Indians can keep arms with a license. They were not allowed to keep arms without a license, whereas Europeans can keep arms without a license. Even today also, suppose for example, if you want to get a gun, okay, you want to get a gun, so definitely licensed guns will be given. You have to apply for it. Okay, government will give you. You have to renew the license after 1 year. Okay, license is required to carry a gun. Okay, so during that time also Indians could not keep arms without a license. Okay, so simple, law was passed, but that law was not applicable for the British. It was not applicable for the British. Okay, that is why Surendranath Banerjee described the act as a badge of racial inferiority. Badge of racial inferiority. So racial inferiority, I cannot, but you can. So this is all about repressive colonial policy. These are the policies. These were the policies introduced by the British, but was very, very repressive. Did you get it? So once again, let me tell you 4 repressive policies one by one. If you are asked to write down the repressive colonial policy, number 1, Grand Darbar was held in Delhi when the whole country was in the grip of famine. Number 2, the age limit to write the ICSE examination was reduced from 21 to 19. Okay, this way the Indians could not compete. And number 3, Vernacular Press Act was passed in the year 1878. Accordingly, the vernacular papers were not allowed to write against the government. If found, they will be banned. Okay, and number 3, Indian Arms Act was passed. No need to confuse. Same year, 1878. Arms Act was passed and the Vernacular Press Act was passed. Okay, so let me write 1878. Okay, 1878. Arms Act was also passed. Vernacular Press Act was also passed. Okay, so Arms Act was passed, and accordingly Indians were not allowed to keep arms without a license, whereas Indians were allowed to keep Indians were not allowed to keep arms without a license, whereas British people were allowed to keep arms without a license. So the law was passed but was not applicable for the British. Okay, so this is all about this 4. If you go through it, it will be enough for it. Okay, then one more, last 5th one, I am going to add it over here. 5% duty on manufactured goods, okay, cotton goods imported from England had been in operation for years. Okay, 5% duty on manufactured cotton goods imported from England had been in operation for years. This duty was abolished. That means the goods imported from Britain, 5% duty was imposed over it. Okay, but now in 1879 it was removed. Indian goods, when they entered the European market, import duties were very high. But here, the British goods coming in the Indian market, the import duty was removed. So automatically the prices will go down. The prices of the goods go high due to taxes. If the taxes are removed by the government at present, if the taxes are reduced, then automatically the prices of goods will go down. Okay, so this was the situation during that time. So definitely all these policies aroused political consciousness among the people. I am also suffering, you are also, we all are suffering due to this policy. Definitely that will bring unity among us or not. So that will bring unity among us, will form public opinion, and definitely we will try to find out the solution to end these problems. Did you get it? Okay. Now, the third one, let me write it. Social religious reform movement. Social religious reform movement. Social religious reform movement. Where is the other chapter? 2. Religious reform movement. Okay, social religious reform movement. So, social religious reform movement, you know that the social reformers, they tried their best to reform the society. So here we are going to discuss about 2 reformers, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Jyotiba Phule. Okay, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, number 1. So let us talk about Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy, my dear, he was a great scholar. Okay. So definitely, my dear, he is also been referred as a man of Indian Renaissance, modern man of India. He brought modernization in our country. It was due to his effort, my dear. Consciousness was built among the Indian people. He was the one of the opinion that we need to free our country from the British rule, but before that we need to free our Indian peoples from the evil practices going on in our society. So we need to free. Okay, so Raja Ram Mohan Roy brought a social reform as well as religious reform. Okay, for that in the year 1815, he established an association called Atmiya Sabha. Okay, Atmiya Sabha. And this Sabha, through this Sabha, he wanted to propagate Hinduism. The idea of Hinduism was propagated among the people. And in the year 1828, Brahmo Samaj also was set up. Brahmo Samaj was set up. And this Brahmo Samaj was set up in order to encourage people to believe in one God. So, lot of superstitious belief was there in our society. People had a faith in different gods and goddesses, my dear. So he wanted to know the truth, and after going through all the religious books, Vedas, Upanishads and all, finally he came to the conclusion that there is only one God. So he came up with the theory of monotheism, believe in one God, and he was completely against idol worship. He even preached against idol worship. Okay, idol murti puja, he was completely against it. Okay, so that is all. Now, apart from religious reform, my dear, he also tried to bring lot of reforms within the society. So what to do, how to do, he had to face a lot of criticism from the orthodox people from the Indian society, right? They were not ready to listen to him, whatever changes he was trying to bring. He was in favor of girl education, he was in favor of women equality, women upliftment and all. But people who had been following this system dominating nature, they were not ready to listen to it. So he had to face a lot of opposition from the orthodox people from our society, my dear. Okay, so still he continued. So with the help of Lord William Bentinck, okay, with the help of Lord William Bentinck, in the year 1829, Sati Pratha was completely banned. Sati Pratha was, lot of evil practices were like Sati Pratha was there, widows were not allowed to marry, okay, female infanticide was there, child marriages were there, okay, girls were not allowed to go for schools and all. So lot of evil practices were there. So first of all, the first important evil was completely banned. So in the year 1829, Lord William Bentinck abolished sati system and was declared as a punishable offence. It was declared as a punishable offence. So if anybody is forced to go or commit sati, then definitely will be punished. Okay, and later on again Widow Remarriage Act also was passed, in which widows were allowed to remarry, because that time child marriage system was there. At the very early age the girls were married, and if by chance if their husband died, then whole life they had to lead a black and white life, okay, nobody was there to look after them, so their life became hell. That is why, to give them color in their life, widows were allowed to remarry. The act was passed which was against the customs of the society. Okay, so this way, my dear, he tried to reform the society. He tried to bring reformation within the religion. In the religion, he taught to the people that there is only one God, we should believe in one God. The theory of monotheism was taught by him. In the society, it was due to his effort, it was due to the effort of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, my dear, sati was banned. Okay, so government did it. So when we discuss about when we discuss all these things in the social reform in chapter number 1, there we found that the Indians were very much hurt because they thought that the British are interfering in their social custom. That is why in the year 1858, when Queen Proclamation came, she decided that they will not interfere in the social custom. But though all these things already had happened in the past. Okay, in 1829 sati was banned. So Indians were worried, wow, they are interfering in our religion, they have banned our pratha which we have been following from generation and generation. So this is all about Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who is also been referred as a modern man of India. He wanted to introduce Western education in our country to understand the minds of the Englishman. Western education also was introduced, so definitely that also we'll discuss later on. Okay, now next one, another number is, okay, I'm rubbing this out. Okay, this is number 1 and number 2. Okay, number 2, it is Jyotiba Phule. It is Jyotiba. He was the another reformer. He was the another social reformer. Jyotiba Phule. Jyotiba Phule was the another social reformer. Okay, Jyotiba Phule. So, what did he do? So, let us try to know a little bit about Jyotiba Phule. He was born in 1828. So, he was junior to Raja Ram Mohan Roy, because in 1828 Brahmo Samaj was set up by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and in the same year 1828 Jyotiba Phule was born. So Jyotiba Phule was born in the year 1828, that is in Satara, okay, Satara district in Maharashtra. He belonged to a very poor family. He was working as a gardener. He belonged to a low caste family. Just imagine, low caste family. And he was a gardener, okay, and he used to grow vegetables. And so that is, he used to grow vegetables. They were known as fule or florist. They were known as fule or florist, those who sells flowers. Okay. So as his caste was very low, and that became the obstacle in acquiring proper education. So in acquiring proper education, his caste became the biggest obstacle. Okay. So that is why, what did he do? So he wanted to work for educating the girls. That is why he established first girls' school in the year 1848. In the year 1848, first school was established in Maharashtra for providing education to the girls. Okay. Then in 1854, okay, he also started to support widow remarriage. He started supporting widow remarriage. And then in 1873, Satya Sadok Samaj. Okay. Satya Sadok Samaj was set up. And what was the main aim of this Samaj society? The main aim was to help the sufferings of the common people, to bring out the sufferings, people out of the suffering, show them the right path. And he, in this path of social reformation, he was supported by his wife Savitri. Okay, Savitri Bai was his wife who supported throughout her life. Okay, and then, so what were the contributions? So definitely due to his hard work and social reform, my dear, he has been given the title Mahatma. He has been given the title Mahatma, and even he was also known as the father of Indian social revolution. Father of Indian social revolution, like father of Indian Renaissance, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Jyotiba Phule was given the title father of Indian social revolution. Okay. So if we talk about his contributions, my dear, definitely he tried to uplift the education system for the girls. He worked tirelessly for providing equal status to the women in the society. Okay. He completely was against idol system, idolatry. He was not at all in favor of idol worship. Okay. He believed, though Vedas were there, he believed in Vedas. He felt that Vedas are infallible. True knowledge, we can get it from the Vedas if you understand it properly. Okay. He even established Arya Samaj. He established Arya Samaj for the spiritual awakening of the Hindus. Okay. Spiritual awakening of the Hindus, to teach them the proper religion. Everything is there in the Vedas. Only thing is that we need to understand it clearly. If we understand it properly, there will not be any problem. Okay. So he was well known for his work like Satyarth Prakash. Okay. Influenced the Indian struggle for freedom. Satyarth Prakash, Indian struggle for freedom. Okay. So the former president of India, at the time, the former president of India, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, called him one of the makers of modern India. S. Radhakrishnan has called him, Jyotiba Phule, as maker of modern India. So definitely the credit goes to them. They were the one who understood the problem in the Indian society, which was filled with lot of evils. Women were treated as a secondary class. So they were to be uplifted. So if the women of the houses are given education, my dear, the family will become bright, my dear. They are the one who look after the family well. So if they are given proper education, if we treat them equally, if we give them importance in our society, definitely our country definitely will develop and become more and more modern. So today you see, it is all due to their effort, my dear. Many of the women now are in very good positions. Right? In many of the states, the chief ministers, lady chief ministers are there. Okay. In the Air Force also you see women pilots are there, lady pilots are there. Trains are being run by ladies, my dear. So this is what we call modernization, where we don't, that means bring any discrimination. We don't do any discrimination among men and women. All should be treated equally. So this is all about social reformation being done. Though it is given in short in your syllabus, if you want to discuss more about this, you can go through it. Many are Dayanand Saraswati is there, Swami Vivekananda is there, right? Likewise, in the Muslim society, Sir Saeed Ahmad Khan was there. He brought reformation. He tried to reform the Muslim society. Many were there. So here, just for class 10 ICSE, two things are added. That is, we need to discuss about Raja Ram Mohan Roy's contribution and Jyotiba Phule's contribution. Okay, so this is all about the socio-religious reform movement done by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the modern man of India, and Jyotiba Phule, who is also been regarded as the father of Indian social revolution. Father of Indian social revolution. Okay, so hope you have understood this chapter. I tried to make it very, very clear. Okay, so please watch the video properly, understand it, don't skip, watch the full from first minute to the last minute. You watch it, your understanding will be more and more clear. Okay, I thought to complete it in this first session only, but it would be very fast to complete it. So in the next session, I'll try to complete the other part of the chapters. Okay, few more chapters we'll discuss, and after that we'll start with the foundation of Indian National Congress. Okay, so let us end our class here only. Okay, and then we'll meet again in the next class. Till then, you must be very, very attentive in watching the videos. Please don't ignore it. And those who have not watched the previous videos, the link to those previous videos, definitely I'll share it in the description box. So please do watch it and watch this video also. Okay, so we'll meet again in the next class. Till then, take care, stay safe, bye bye.